Hey guys, Comet here. Welcome back to Alchemy Factory. Now, the original plan for this episode was to get into the Mars relic down here, but it takes a lot of copper. And after I put in the copper build in the last episode, I realized I didn't have enough fertilizer to run everything. So if I were to put in Mars in this episode, I still wouldn't have enough fertilizer to run it, so it would be completely pointless. So I'm actually going to pivot over to growth potions instead, and that prompted a redesign of some stuff. So this is where all of the shop items were being built before. I've completely removed everything. I don't think I'm going to use anything on this floor here, just because it's only one tall. I've moved everything up and combined it with the copper. So this is just the logistics floor here. This is where today's build is going to go. But up on this floor here, this is where everything has been moved. So it's all the same blueprints. Nothing's been changed, really. It's just that I have a little bit more iron and a little bit more soap. That way I can accommodate the copper build. And I realized it was a little overbuilt, so I've shrunk it down a little bit. I just have 2 Athenors doing copper powder here. If you want to pick up this blueprint, I'll put this in my Discord as well. The other ones will still work fine. There's also been a couple of updates to the tech tree I noticed. There's this drawbridge conveyor here that looks like has a ceiling attachment, rather than just a wall attachment like the drawbridge conveyor, or the old drawbridge conveyor. There's also these retractable conveyor passages, and this one I'm really excited about, the retractable beam. So I'm going to run up to my treasury and grab some money so I can do some research. So let's pick up, well, we need the blender to go into the growth potion. I definitely want to play around with the retractable beam. I think that'll compress some of the builds we'll be doing later on in the episode. Let's also pick up a conveyor passage and the drawbridge conveyor. But let's pick up the growth potions. I'll be staying away from black powder for now. I don't think I'm going to be using that as a fuel source. I think just sticking to coke powder is fine for now. Eventually, the fertilizer and the fuel will all be on the same line, and that'll simplify logistics a little bit. And that'll be done through the panacea potion, but still a little ways away from that. The only thing that requires black powder is the blast potion. So until I get to the blast potion, yeah, I'm not gonna bother with black powder. There is growth potions finished. Now, I could run through all the numbers like I've been doing in the past, but because this build is a little bit bigger, I think I'll just throw up on screen the plan I'll be following, just so you can see all the numbers all at once. I think that'll be less confusing. So I'm calibrating this to 1 full belt of growth potions. You can see the chain working backwards. I think the easiest place to start will be the nurseries doing chamomile, and those need to feed in to some grinders. Now I think the best way of doing this is to put the nursery on top of the grinders. And then have it feed down into them, kind of like this. And then this will be 1 full belt of chamomile powder out. And then I could stack this and do the same thing. So I'd end up with something that looks a little bit like this. Just some stacked nurseries with some grinders. The fertilizer can come in right here, go into the bottom one, come up and over into the top one. Then I have 1 full belt of chamomile powder out here, and 1 full belt of chamomile powder out there. Now that is the easiest part of the entire build. I'm going to go ahead and put this just over in the corner for now to make some space. I think the next easiest place to go to are the 48 stone crushers needed for all of the salt. I could do the Athenor recipe, but then I would need 3 times as many Athenors as stone crushers, and then I'd have to supply a lot of fuel to that, and I don't want to deal with all that. So I'm just going to use the rock salt recipe. But with the retractable beam, it's going to be a lot easier to stack these stone crushers now. So before, right, my old crusher build has this double block pillar in the middle because these beams don't span across everything. But now what I can do is put two together without those two blocks in the middle. Put a pillar on this side and a pillar on this side. And then the beam can span across all of that. And that is so much nicer. This will have two different outputs, so I'll get a filter splitter here, just to differentiate the salt from the sand. I think I'll run the salt out of the bottom, and then the sand out of the top in the other direction. And then this whole thing here is tileable, vertically and horizontally. So I can stack this 4 tall, and that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 per unit. If I take the 48 divided by the 8 I have here, that gives me 6 total of these units. And technically I don't need this here, so I'm going to remove this. Just to make it a little shorter. Okay, there we go. Then I'll stack this 6 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that will take care of all of the salt I need for the brine. The salt can run around on the bottom here, go into some extractors. Oh, I need glass. I'll be right back. So just along here, I need a total of 32 extractors. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 levels. So 32 divided by 4 is 8. So I would need 8 extractors per level. So I'll just do something like this. That gives me all 8 there. In order to get these to stack, I think I have to move them over a little bit. Let's put them here and get in another support pillar. Just like this. I'll do the piping now so I can stack it. I always forget about the piping. So I should be able to take this whole thing with the piping and stack it twice, 3 times, and then a 4th time up here. And then get rid of the extra scaffolding that I don't need. And then as long as all of these outputs connect together, that is all of the brine I need. For rock salt inputs, I think I'm just going to do a switchback. So all the rock salt will just come in on the bottom, come up and over, and then up and over. So that is part 2 done. That gives me the chamomile and the salt, or the brine. Then the third ingredient is clay powder. Now this one's going to take quite a bit of space. I need 120 stone crushers, that is a lot of stone crushers, and 48 table saws. So I'm going to basically just copy this build here without the filters in front. And this can go off to the side, where it will go into the grinders, because this makes rock, but I need to then crush the rock again into sand. And if I take a look at how many grinders I need, total is 240. So that works out to 2 grinders per crusher. And based on the 20 a minute that the crusher produces, I can only stack this horizontally 3 times before I oversaturate this belt. which means I would need 12 of these grinders to process all of that rock. Now, I could do a 4x3, but I think, actually, a 3x4 fits a little better here. And then I can just use a switchback to make sure I hit all of the inputs here. So I'll copy everything, stack it once, twice, and then one more time. And that gives me 24 of these crushers. Need 120, so if I stack this entire unit 5 times, that would be all of the sand. Now the second input to clay is charcoal powder. So let me get this unit out of the way. Put it over here for now. Now I have some space to work on the charcoal powder. The charcoal is made in a crucible. These need to go on top of furnaces, but throughput-wise, if I do 8 crucibles, that will fully saturate 1 belt. So I can't quite take advantage of this final slot here, but I can just stack these, and then I'll have another belt of output here. Now I need a total of 96 crucibles, so if I take the 96 and divide that by 8, that gives me 12 floors of these crucibles. And technically they do need some grinders on the ends. And I'm going to do the basic grinder. So that is 6 tall. If I were to double this, it would start getting into the way of the balcony. So I think I'll just do 2 of these builds, because I also have to think about how I'm going to be getting the wood into all of these inputs here. I need space for a fuel line here. I can just stack the wood inputs. Just like how I stack the outputs. The problem is getting the table saws to cooperate with the right stacking ratios. So for table saws, if they're doing 30 planks a minute, can fully saturate one of these belts. So this right here would be the first input. Then I'd need another input along here. And if I take this and double it on this side, but then raise the table saws up 1 block, that gets the second line to tile really nicely. The problem is that I can't do that again, because the metal stand doesn't stack the table saws until this belt here, the 4th belt. So I'm missing the 3rd belt. And that is also true for the next layer. Once I get these in place, these table saws line up with belt 5, but nothing lines up with belt 6. So if I come to the very end over here, I would need to make 2 halves for all of the in-between zones. So instead of being offset by 1 block, this is going to be offset by 2 blocks. And then these 2 and these 2 can all feed in to this level. And this hits the in-between. And then the 6th level will just be stacked on top of this little thing at the end here. One, two, 3, and 4. So that, I think, is the cleanest way of getting all 6 belts of wood into the crucibles. Then I have the grinders on the end, and that gives me 6 belts of charcoal powder out. I do need 12, so this needs to be doubled, just like how that needs to be quintupled. But the final piece, where everything is put together, is done in assemblers, doing the clay recipe. And for these, the basic grinder is also enough. I don't need to use the enhanced grinder. Now, throughput-wise, this takes 60 a minute of sand, 30 a minute of charcoal powder. So for a grouping of 4, I could have 1 belt of charcoal powder, but then I would need 2 belts of sand. So I could do a little drop down here and here, but then I would need to drop down from the next height up to do the next ones. So that would be belt 1 of sand, and then belt 2 of sand. Then all of the grinders just output together. This produces 15 a minute, so I could actually fit... I could fit 4 of these assemblers before I oversaturate the output belt. So how about I double this? I'd have a second belt here for charcoal powder. Then this would be sand and sand. Then I should be able to get this entire thing to stack vertically. Using the basic steel beam. I think this is long enough. Oh yeah, just barely long enough. So I could do a grouping of 8 and stack that up 6 times. I think I'll just do 3 though. So I'll take this and stack it once and twice. And then to get the total 48 I need, I'll just double this whole thing. But all of that will finally condense down into the advanced blender. Of course, I don't have any bearings. I will be right back. Everything will go into 12 of these, doing the growth potion recipe. Now, a single belt can only supply 2 of these advanced blenders with clay powder, because it needs 60 a minute. So that would be all I could do for clay powder there. Then I'd need another belt to supply the next 2 with clay powder, and then another belt to do the next 2. The chamomile powder is a little more forgiving. It's only 20 a minute. Which means I could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 before I would need a second belt. And then all of the liquid outputs can just link together. Across here. And all of these outputs just link together on a single belt there. And that would be 1 fully saturated belt of growth potions that could supply all of the floors of this tower with fertilizer. So I've got all of the individual pieces. Now I just need to put them all together in a coherent manner. Oh, I am missing one thing. I need to make fuel for these furnaces here. I think I have a blueprint for that already. Coke powder, 120 a minute, stackable crucibles. That sounds excellent. Sure, we'll use this one. And I think I'll put it over here, out of the way. I think I'll start with all of the sand. So that is this particular build here. I'll take this. I need 5 of these. I'll start these right here next to the fuel. Come out a few blocks from the bus back there. That way there's enough space for a purchasing portal. I could actually put it right up against there. But I'm going to leave a little bit of space so that I can walk through it. Just to make sure that nothing's going wrong. And then there's also space for purchasing portal here. And I said I needed 5 of these things, so this is number 3. That's number 4. And then number 5. Okay. I think I'll move the brine into place now. So I'll get this one with the piping right up about here. Got room to walk behind it. I can move the chamomile. Be over in this area. And that leaves the other half of this floor to double this. And then double this. Let's move this a little closer to the corner. Back over here. I want to put the assemblers a little closer to the sand output over here. Just to make belting a little simpler. So, one here. And then one right here next to it. Still got some space to walk through. Right, these 4 belts are sand. These 4 belts are sand, and those 4 belts are sand. So then the charcoal powder on the bottom there, that can come... That'll come from these builds. There's actually a tiny bit of space savings I can get by using the blast furnace here, rather than these basic furnaces. If we take a look at the specific geometry here, this supplying belt here could be reached from both sides, which means some of these crucibles don't have to poke out as far. They can go in this empty space here. Now the problem is that the stone furnaces that I'm stacking them on top of always tile with 3 crucibles, because it's 3 blocks long. So to get all 8 crucibles would still take 2 furnaces, which is the same dimensions as the blast furnace. I wouldn't need this extra furnace on the end here. And I think from a belting perspective, this is one of the few times where the blast furnace does make sense. So that bottom belt can feed all 8 crucibles. Those need to go into grinders. And then I'll have all of their outputs join up in the middle here, and then come out. So I'll stack this instead. Spacing-wise, this is noticeably smaller and a little bit cleaner looking than the older design. So I will copy what I did here and paste it onto this end. Still need to figure out the busing scenario. So sand, I will just not put on the bus. I think that's just too much material. It'd be easier just to go across the center. So the first thing that actually needs to go on the bus is the chamomile powder here. So I'll get this in position right about here, I think. I need fertilizer from height 3 to come over and feed into that. Then chamomile powder can run out onto height 4 is the next unused one. Then this line of chamomile powder can go onto height 5. So then these 12 belts of charcoal powder definitely won't fit on the remaining belts. I think just doing a separate bus for the sand and the charcoal powder makes more sense than trying to put it onto the main floor bus. Because I could use the remaining lines for the 6 outputs from here and here to go into here. So chamomile goes in on 4 and 5, so I could use 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 for the clay powder. So those will just all plug into their respective heights there. And then this one over here is to go into that height. That height. And that height over the top of everything. And then I can just drop all of those outputs down. So chamomile is on 4 and 5. So starting here on 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. This can just plug straight in. So I'll come over here on top of these. From 4 and 5. I can go over into there. And that one will go over into there. See, to get the brine over to here, I'll just run a pipe across the ceiling where it's out of the way. And then just drop it down at the right level there to plug in. Alright, I think now, yeah, I just connect those into there and all of that mess into, somewhere in there. If I make it 4 belts wide, here, then I can fit 2 of these per level. Then the sand should have some space to come through from the other side. And then the next layer of charcoal powder can come in at this height to here. So that needs to line up with the next set. So this needs to drop down into there. This one will drop down at that height. Then these two over here will come from the same spot. And plug in like this. Yeah, I think that's going to be the cleanest way to do this. Because then the next set can come down from this elevator into there, and this elevator into there. From that height. And from that height. So I'll just repeat that for the last 4. Alright, now all I have to do is connect in all of the sand to these 4, those 4, and those 4. Those 4, those 4, and those 4. I've got 4 right here with this one unit. So I think I'll just drop it down to floor height. So I've got this one that can go into here. That one can go into there. And then on the other side of the pillar, that'll go into there. And that will go into there. So then these 4 here need to go into that height. And I really want to try out the retractable conveyor passage. So if I start here and go over to... Okay, so it just needs some support on that side. I can go from there to there, and I don't need any support in the middle because the passage is its own support. To there. Then I could span that gap. Oh yeah, these are really nice. Because then, for the top layer, I could just run the belts across the passage. And it doesn't need a passage of its own. Now, these 4 need to go into those 4. Then these 4 need to somehow make their way into these 4 right here. And this is getting messier each step of the way. But something like that should work to get it over condensed up and then into there. And then these final upper ones. I've got one more here. This one needs to go... I think into this one would be easier, because then this one needs to be supplied by the sand from here. So I'll drag this out to about there. I'll use the belting that's already at this height. So this one can just come up into there. this one can come up to there. That one can turn immediately. This one will come out one and then turn. Then the next height, this one can come up to here. That one will come up to here, and same thing. That one will turn first, and then this one will come out one and then turn again. So then this final one here will come up, not to that height, but one taller. That one plugs into there. And that one can plug into there, like that. I think that is everything. Except, oh, I didn't put the input to the wood yet. So I could go along here, drop down with an elevator, and then across all of these. And then I'll come up with a second elevator to get this height here. Okay, that's some pretty straightforward busing. And technically, all of this can be supplied with a single belt. Just from this purchasing portal here. I don't think I forgot anything. We should be able to just connect everything into the money line and get everything going. So let's get money flowing here. I'll connect that in. And now the only thing I'm missing is the chamomile. I never bought the chamomile plants. Let's go grab those. Right here. I just need 2 of those. Oh, not enough currency. That sucks. Get these in place. Chamomile and chamomile. Now, this only produces 12 right now. That's because it's using the advanced fertilizer. But once all of the advanced fertilizer gets cycled out, and everything gets transitioned over to the growth potions, then these will actually make the full 120 I need per nursery. So I will set you to wood. Get in some purchasing portals over here. I need rock salt here. Then all of these need to be limestone. Now there is a scenario where this can back up. If the sand from here isn't consumed before the sand from here is consumed, then I could back up with sand, which will plug up the salt production, which will stop the brine production, which will then stop the sand consumption, because these can't function because they don't have proper ratios. So in theory, I could do a lot of complex balancing, or I could just have some splitters here that take all of the sand, first pass it through the bottom, and secondarily output this way. into some refiners. And then I can just sink all of the excess sand into diamonds to keep the shop fed with diamonds. Because now that I reduced copper production to fit it onto the same floor as everything else, I'm not actually making very many diamonds. So this right here, do a little bit of a splice. Take this and put it in right there. Should see the sand flow through, but then if this ever gets backed up, then it'll come out of the splitter on top and go into these refiners. I'm gonna put a box right here to capture all of the growth potions. That way I can finally submit that main quest and progress to the next alchemy level. I also want to prioritize these growth potions into the chamomile production. That way I can make growth potions faster. So if I put in a growth potion instead now, I make the full 120. So that multiplies this production by 10. That is crazy. Now it's going to take a while for all of this to completely saturate, and I'm sure there's a mistake I made somewhere. So I'm going to watch this run for a little while, and then come back once everything is functioning properly. Well, all of the clay powder belts are moving now, so I think everything has fully saturated, and that is mesmerizing to watch. So I'm going to submit all of these growth potions into the mailbox and complete the main quest. So we will get that out of the way. Nice. Got 2 more points I can spend. Also unlocked lavender seeds and quartz ore. So now the next main quest is the blast potion. So I'll do a quick little recap of everything I built here. It starts with money. Everything starts with money. Money goes into a fuel processor here. This just makes all the fuel necessary for this particular floor. Money goes into this purchasing portal, that purchasing portal. All of these here just do limestone. These crushers convert the limestone into stone. The stone wraps around into these grinders here, where it is then turned into sand and sent out over to the clay makers. There is a little bit of sand being provided by the rock salt, and I need the rock salt to make salt for brine. The brine wraps around on that pipe there, all the way over to the blenders here. And then the sand here is combined with wood from here. All of these table saws go into these stackable crucibles to make charcoal powder. Charcoal powder is then combined with the sand over in these assemblers and then ground up one more time to make the clay powder. And then the brine, clay powder, and chamomile powder. Forgot to mention the chamomile powder. This tiny little build right here is the chamomile over to these blenders here. So there's the 2 lines of chamomile powder, and then 6 lines of clay powder, and then the 1 pipe of brine, because pipes have infinite throughput. So then the growth potions just run out, around, back over to the chamomile here, and then it also drops down to the shop on this particular elevator here. But then it also goes up into the floor above, and it'll actually keep going into any floor above to provide all of the fertilizer necessary for these builds. So if I follow the fertilizer up 1 floor higher, we should see that there is money and fertilizer available for whatever it is I want to put up here. So I could have money plug into the bottom there, and fertilizer can plug in to height 3 here. Now this space has access to the 2 basic components needed to build anything I want. So I'll make blueprints of all of the individual pieces. That way you can very easily put it together in your world. Those will be available in my Discord, link in the description. But I think that's going to be it for this episode. So I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.